Hello friends and welcome back to my channel. Alright, buckle your seatbelts because we're going to have a crazy one. Get your popcorn. I've been getting some really intense messages over the past few weeks and for a while now, really kind of like reoccurring messages. I've tried to do videos on it, but I put them up and take them down, or I just don't post them because I think I sound crazy in them. I worry about how I'm going to be judged when I put these videos up. So I kind of want to say before I go into this, there are going to be kind of themes of the stories that people have told for a very long time through different cultures that have these kind of key themes and key elements from kind of like reoccurring motifs and things that occur across different cultures, different religions. I really want to emphasize the fact that I am not presenting a challenge to anyone's belief system. Everybody is welcome to believe what they believe and interpret things in their own way. Now, completely separate to kind of everything that we've been told so far, I am also getting the same symbolism, but it's coming through with a certain story. So I am going to tell you the story of what I've been channeling. I don't have all the answers. I don't know what everything means, but it's been intense. And it's going to be how do I put this? It's going to be a alternative path, an alternative story with some similar features from other stories we've been told, okay? So I don't mean to be controversial. I'm not trying to push anyone's buttons. And all I ask that if you're coming to this reading, you come to it with an open mind and you just take it as a story. And if you're like, you know what, that's not my thing, that's not your thing, that's absolutely fine. I'm not trying to convince anyone of anything. It's just a story. Please don't get mad at me. Where else do I start? So some of you may know, okay, I really need to talk about my own meditation practice. So the tree of life or the tree of knowledge or just a tree in general, is a reoccurring motif that goes throughout many different religions and cultures throughout history. So you can find it in like Babylonian culture, you can find it in, the Bible, you can find it in the Kabbalah, like most world religions have a version of this tree. And again, you can go and look at this up on Wikipedia. There's a lot of variety. So when I meditate, I'm going to really use this card to kind of show you what I do. And again, I don't know where I've picked this up from. I remember a drama class when I was like about 13, 14, where my drama teacher was like, okay, breathe, close your eyes, pretend you're a tree. But like beyond that, I don't know. This is just how I naturally started meditating. So when I meditate, and of course I know about chakras and things like that, so I run energy or visualize energy running up and down my body. I think a lot of people do this. I think it's common practice, but I visualize the energy running up and down my body like it's running up and down the trunk of a tree, almost like veins of a tree, right, or something like that. If you think about how a tree sucks up water, it's like, and it runs through the tree, right? So sucking up energy, pulling down energy, this up and down. And then I imagine I'm growing roots. So I imagine I'm growing energetic roots, and this energy kind of comes out underneath me and runs into the earth. And then I imagine this energy runs up my body, turns into branches and reaches up to the sky and pulls in like that kind of sky energy. So this does talk about going down with it being the chakras, right? So if you think about the root chakra, I see this kind of root system or root chakra down below energy, kind of visually, kind of a little bit like this. So it talks about going into the past. So if you think about the earth, the soil as being the root system where the seed germinated, this happened early in the life of the tree. So the roots draw in nutrients from the soil. So really it's talking about how you were raised, what environment were you raised in, the past, the history. And the deeper and deeper you go, the deeper and deeper you're burying into the past. So if you think about how archaeological digs, they dig down, they find things from the past. So if you think about the roots being symbolic of the past, where we came from, and then the branches talking about where we're going, so up into the sky, right, reaching up into our future, up towards the stars. This came through in one reading, like humanity, it came through with this message of, we started with fire, like as the human race, we started with fire and now we're reaching for the stars. So like it's kind of got this energy of like, look how far we've come. So if you think about this as well as like this motif of the tree stretching into the past and into the future, and you imagine it like a timeline, right, the timeline of our past, the timeline reaching into the future, the progress we've made. Now there's been a lot of stuff about physics, a lot of stuff about your brain, you know, the hippocampus, the amygdala, there's another one. Oh, I forgot what it's called. But I literally have been channeling like brain words that I've had to go and look up. I've been like, what's that? I'm looking it up. They're showing me hippos for hippocampus and stuff. Yeah, and then like physics stuff and about how things compress, or you know, all that kind of stuff. So if you're into kind of like the Star Trekky wibbly wobbly timey wimey stuff, we're talking about that as well. So I've been going parallel dimensions, multiple timelines, energy, right? Oh, I'm gonna save that one for a second. You know, this idea that time isn't linear, time is, you know, time can bend, time can fold in on itself, time can concertina. And so through meditation, I had this really intense meditation where, if you've ever seen the film Lucy, which is a film with Scarlett Johansson, which I haven't seen the full film, but I've seen clips of it. This film with Scarlett Johansson where she has these substances in her body and it causes her to use 100% of her brain. And when she gets to this point where she uses 100% of her brain, it's like she becomes the universe. She becomes godlike, right? It's like she can bend time. She can go to, you know, the beginning of time where we were kind of like just coming out of the ape stage, or to the end of the universe. And it's like she could see and be everything. She was everywhere. And so I've been getting this motif as well of like, so again, going back to the beginning, right? Going back to when we started with the fire. So I've also been getting this image, that's obviously not the beginning of the universe, but the beginning of humanity. So I've been getting this thing as well about being everywhere all at once, which again is another film that I've not finished watching yet, so no spoilers. But it's also been coming through with, I don't know if you know Clara Osborne or Oswald, Clara Oswald from Doctor Who, where she's called the Impossible Girl because she's everywhere. It's like wherever he goes, he sees her. It's like, how can you exist across time and space? How can you be in multiple timelines? Like, how are you doing this? And she's just a normal girl. She doesn't know. She's not aware of these other versions of herself. And so I was getting this, you can see it in the cards. It's like all these women. It's like all these women, but they're the same woman. And it's occurring as well with like all the men, but they're the same men. Because one of your songs is from The Bodyguard. And if you look at the album cover, it's like loads of different versions of him, right? There's like all these different, it's almost like being in a room of mirrors. And then every single reflection of you is kind of like a Horcrux or something, right? It's like your soul, your energy spread. Imagine, yeah, exactly like the image of you, right? So if you were stood in a room lined with mirrors, right, like facets, like you're in the middle of a diamond, right, with all these facets of mirror, it's like all those reflections of you being reflected again and again and again and again into infinity, right? That's what it's like. But instead of it just being the image of you, it's like your consciousness is spread everywhere. So it's big brain stuff. But the thing is, and like I say, I've been really, really nervous about posting this because I think it makes me sound like a little bit conspiracy theory crazy, right? A little bit. I'm not saying it's the aliens, but it's the aliens. So I've been really nervous about sharing this, and like the videos get really long and really rambly, and but I need to get it out because it's not going to stop. This message isn't going to stop coming unless I release it. So so this is another thing as well, is I didn't ask for this. I didn't I didn't think, oh, I'm going to start, wake up one day and be like, I'm going to start a channel and pretend to be psychic. No, I had a spiritual awakening. I was going through a really bad time in my life. I prayed for help, and I don't normally pray. And I had a spiritual awakening, which was very confusing. It was very, I did the whole thing where my body cleanses itself. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. I thought I was going crazy. I was like, I think the universe is talking to me, and it was, apparently, because I've had so much evidence that the visions and the intuitive messages that I've had actually play out. So again, it's very hard for me, having quite a rational mind. I've got so much air in my chart, being quite a skeptical person who's like, let's look at, let's get some scientific evidence on this. I questioned myself. Really did question myself. And then, I've had the confirmation of like being out on a clear day and asking, is this real? Is this really happening? And there being like a single flash of lightning in the sky, and then going home and telling somebody about this, and then being really skeptical and saying, right, well, if this is true, God struck me down. And they were playing a video game and they blew up immediately as they said it on the video game. I was like, see. So things like that, which you could explain as a coincidence, but when it happens, channeling things like full lines from movies. The movie June, I knew nothing about it, and in the week before I watched it, I channeled like full scenes, full sentences, and it's like, how do you do that? It happened last night as well. I was watching something and I was like, oh, that's what I've been channeling. I can't even remember what I was watching. Waking up and seeing, I don't know why I'm providing you with evidence, but just examples of like how this played out and how other people can see this. So I woke up one day and I had a vision in my head, and I was being shown the Tower card and the Death card, which can mean a shock and a death, right? Or an abrupt ending, and seeing crows and things. And I did a reading on it, and I remember in the reading not saying what I was getting, which was that somebody's going to die, because I didn't want to scare anyone. So I was like, it doesn't always mean a death. It could mean a shocking ending, blah, blah, blah. And then I posted that reading. Later on that afternoon, we found out that a family member had passed away, like suddenly. So the vision that I had was absolutely 100% correct. And I modified it and cushioned it and doubted it. So it can be quite hard actually to have this kind of Cassandra-like, or Cassandra, or if you know, like Bruno from Encanto. We don't talk about Bruno. It's like, I don't want to be shunned by society for, seeing things and delivering messages that are hard to deliver. Like, you really worry about it. But it's happening, and it's happening for a reason, right? I guess. So, as well as the Tree of Life, I've been looking up, because there's these two cards in this reading. And I always got a really bad feeling about this card. I don't know, it gives me the creeps. And this card feels more positive to me. But when I've looked up the actual meaning of the cards, this one's very, very negative and destructive. And this one is actually talking about a very God-given gift of prophecy. So the sorcerer and the seer. So actually the meaning is, this one's a lot more like, because I've always thought about religion as being against me, right? Something that would condemn me for what I could do. I think because of things like James, the King James Bible, and how King James was, very against witchcraft and things like this. So I've always been really worried about like backlash and things like this, because to me, I prayed for help, and the first guide that came to me identified themselves as Archangel Michael, right? And this is how they presented, or how I interpreted it. So it's always felt very, very divine, this gift that I've been given. But again, it's like a gift and a curse. So to be getting messages that sometimes perhaps contradict what is written in scripture, I get very scared about that because of history, right? Because of learning lessons from the past. But again, if we scroll back, that's interesting. I'm saying scroll back rather than roll back. If we roll back further than King James and his witch hunts, and we go into, the Old Testament, and even like Roman and Greek culture, prophets or prophetesses were actually revered. So I didn't know this. I looked it up because of this reading, and there's at least 10 females, 10 women in the Old Testament who are, you know, depending on the interpretation, because again, humans are fallible, and we read what we want into, you know, we're given these divine messages and we interpret it the way that we want to. I watched a really funny video yesterday about now the Commonwealth Games were set in Birmingham. The symbol of Birmingham is this bull. And then hadn't seen the kind of performance, like the show that they put on, until yesterday, when I watched a reaction video by this guy who was trying to sell a book, basically. But he was very, very, you know, that kind of like righteous, you know, the people who interpret something that's just a bit of art and they interpret in their own way and they get really self-righteous about it because he was trying to sell his book, and it just, the whole thing was hilarious to me. But yeah, they had this massive bull that was a symbol of Birmingham, because Birmingham has the bull ring. Bulls are a symbol of that that area. And also the Birmingham is a city that bloomed during the Industrial Revolution, so they had this bull that was like this industrial bull that had these red eyes and it was angry, and these women were chained to it who were symbolic of the women who or the people who you know, got sucked in by the Industrial Revolution and, you know, didn't really have rights at the beginning of it and things like this. And so it was really a story of the history of Birmingham, but this man interpreted it as, and it was the devil and these women set it free and then rode it. And I was like, no, it was a symbol of like progress and industry. Anyway, it was hilarious. And then he was like, and then they were all praying to Lucifer, and it was this big disco ball in the sky. And I was like, Lucifer's a disco ball, apparently. Like, it's just the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. Anyway, but scary at the same time because people believe this absolute nonsense, right? So where was I? So yeah, I've always felt afraid of what people will think of me. You know, my dad dated this woman once who was very Christian, and she was very anti, you know, she wouldn't like tarot or things like that, or anything to do with like star signs. You know, she was like, oh, burn the witch. And I was like, shut up, bitch, I'm a nicer person than you. Like, you know what? I can see by my actions that I'm a nice person, and you're, you know, like, you know, there's people who claim to be religious and Christ-like, but they're really judgmental and nasty and condemning. And it's like, I don't think that's what Christ was teaching. So I don't know. Anyway, again, I'm talking about religion. I'm not trying to upset anyone. I'm just, you know, you have good, you know, with any kind of group of people, you have good people who are moderate and kind, and you have people who are, in any group, especially the groups that are really, really, really trying to act like they're the right ones, you know. It's like the, oh, okay. So anyway, I mean, just look at certain religions in the past 10-15 years, and, you know, Middle East, and look at how people took a religion and used it to do a huge amount of harm, right? So that kind of, how using religion as a tool to be cruel is, I think, really the devil's work. But I mean, take it as you will, leave it if you don't. So what am I saying to you? So the seer, right? So the seer, if we go back historically, the female who isn't doing witchcraft, right? I'm not doing witchcraft. I'm not doing magic spells and kind of, you know, cursing people or anything like that. That's not my vibe. I don't see myself as a witch, but I do see myself as a seer. I do see myself as a high priestess. I do see myself as someone who is receiving messages that play out, right? This is evidenced in my life. The people around me can see this. So there's a distinction being made here, and perhaps learning from history, learning from how we've treated women with perhaps psychic gifts, and perhaps women who do energy work and things like this, and fear around that as well. Fear of women with knowledge is coming through quite strongly. So I'm going to go to my notes now. Okay. Just to say, this is a super divine feminine reading. So we've even got like the willow tree and the chalice under in the underlying. Willow tree being, I have the willow tree and the oak tree. The oak tree is more symbolic of divine masculine, being this sturdy thing. Again, I am going to talk a little bit about gender. So I really want to emphasize that when I talk about gender in my readings, I'm not talking about men and women, right? I'm talking about divine feminine and divine masculine energy. And we all contain both divine masculine and divine feminine, because we're talking about the one energy, the creator energy, which is everything, all things, right? So which we are, if God is everywhere and in everything, then we are a piece of that, right? We are a piece of God, and we are also everywhere in everything. It's a weird concept, but roll with it, right? But I'm focusing on the yin energy, the divine feminine energy, which we all carry, but it's presenting as female. So just be aware that if you don't perhaps present as the gender that you were born with, then that's okay. You're also included in this. If you present as male, this also affects you, because you also carry this energy. You're also connected to this energy. But you may find that you identify more with the masculine element or the feminine element. Just go with whatever you identify more with. You know, separation isn't real. Separation is a lie. We're all connected. So the willow tree really understands this connection. The willow tree is more flexible. It draws from the earth. It draws from it's a tree associated with water, and water to me I associate with emotion and memories. If you think about how the water cycle works, nothing ever goes anywhere. Everything is always cycling and changing and transforming. So water really for me carries energy as something that splits light as well. It's that's why it's used as like a divination tool. Anyway, so the willow tree really drawing up the emotions of the past, the emotional memories of the past. And it's a supportive, flexible tree. So, and the chalice being like the Ace of Cups. The Ace of Cups is symbolic of females, female genitalia, the womb. So really, just so much feminine energy in this reading. The priest underneath that, because there's always a man, right? I'm joking. Again, I don't see male, female. I see yin yang as the whole, right? So I'm not a man hating or anything here, but we're going to talk historically a little bit about the vilification of the feminine, and the oppression of feminine power, and especially feminine power that is seen as God-given. You know, especially the Middle Ages and things like this really didn't like that. So okay, hold on to your hats, it gets crazy. It gets a little bit dark. So Dream I Had by Revenge Wife. So we start with this dream energy. This was really confirmed to me just before I started the reading, where I got, I think I loved you before I met you. I think I dreamed you into life. So there's a message coming through about accessing memory, if you think about the idea that we're split across time and space, that we're actually, yes, we're here in this moment of consciousness, but we're also playing out different storylines as different versions of ourselves in different parallel dimensions. Okay, I told you it's going to be wacky stuff, so either roll with it or don't roll with it, but just take it as a story if it's not your vibe, or turn off, I don't mind. But if you imagine being a little bit like Clara Oswald, or if you've watched the Amazon Prime, if you've watched Everywhere All at Once, that film, or if you've watched the Amazon Prime TV show with Peter Capaldi in at the moment called The Devil's Hour. Again, I don't want to do too many spoilers, but this idea of like, if you look at the imagery of that show, the promotional pictures, he's got all these mirrors, right? So it's like all these parallel timelines, right? And this is happening all the time. So if this seems airy-fairy to you, if this seems like she's talking absolute nonsense, there's no science to this, that absolutely is. So if you think about, if you take a picture of yourself and you put it on Instagram, that picture of yourself that you've put on the internet has been beamed around the world on all these different satellite dishes, right? All these different, this electronic network, right? Wi-Fi beamed into the sky, beamed into our atmosphere. Now, one of the messages that came through in one of the readings was, we're a really noisy planet. We're constantly sending out, look at me, look at me, look at me, TikTok videos, Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook, all, we are like literally scientifically beaming out projections of ourselves into the universe. You know, people talk about like the first thing we ever sent up into space was Hitler's speech. So, you know, hopefully they think we're making progress. So that's talking about if anything's out there and it's receiving these messages, right? So we're here being this big noisy planet going, look at me, look at me, look at me. This is what I look like. This is what I look like with filters. This is what I look like without filters. This is my cat. This is my, this is where I wear. This is like me having brunch. So all this look at me, look at me, look at me, look at me going out into the universe is literally, if you think about how light travels, right? How protons travel. Photons? I don't know. Again, I am not scientific. They tell me stuff and I get it wrong. But if you think about how light travels, it travels in waves, right? It ripples out. So if I put a picture on the internet, that picture of me is rippling out into space for eternity, right? It goes and goes and goes. Similar to how if you stood in front of two mirrors, your image of yourself is being reflected out into eternity. So this is not madness. This is science. This is what happens, right? This is physics. So right, so what was I going to say? So this idea of like literally existing in the moment, but being beamed out across the universe, being everywhere all at once, right? Like if you dropped a pebble in water and it rippled out. So being able to tap into, okay, now we're going to go like a little bit crazier, right? So if you accepted that, buckle in a little bit more, check your headrest. We're going to go one stage deeper. So I had the song by Wolf Alice, which is the last man on earth, right? So it's almost like what I'm receiving, what I'm getting intuitively is like perhaps Adam and Eve, but every woman is Eve and every man is Adam. And the consciousness of God is coming down to earth to have a human experience in all these fragments, which is all of us. So it's basically like if you could tap back to source, you could tap into somebody else. I know, right? So it's like, what if we have had past lives? What if we are in multiple dimensions? People talk about the Mandela effect. I had this recently with crisps. People were saying like Walker's crisps have always been, the cheese and onion and salt and vinegar have always been blue and green, and I was like, no, because I remember when it changed. Everybody's like, it's always been like that. I was like, I have a specific memory of when it changed because I was really mad about it. I didn't understand why they changed it, which could be a time slip, right? So so the idea of projecting your consciousness or being able to pull in consciousness of others. So this came through a line in a Wolf Alice song which says, every book you read and take down from the shelf has line between line of things you read about yourself. And this brought to me the thought of, what if we are everyone, right? If that person walking on the street outside is me, right? A different form of me, me living a different life. What if the reason why we are so inspired to create, inspired to write a diary or write a book or to make a film, it's like they say, don't they, everybody has at least one good book in them. And it's like this, what you're doing when you create a piece of art like a book or a film or a painting is you're taking something that is within you, taking something that came to you in dreams or subconscious thoughts or it's like you've absorbed all this information and mutated it inside you into what is your consciousness, and then you write a book, right, which is an expression of your inner consciousness, your subconscious thoughts, your psyche in a book. And so they showed me going to a library and like looking at all the books, and it's like if you took a book and read a book by a different person, you could actually be accessing information from you from a past existence. So it's like through writing books, we're communicating with ourselves, living different existences, right? So it's almost like we're trying to capture a mood, a moment, a flash of consciousness, and give it to other people because those other people need it. So this idea of like passing knowledge or passing the consciousness, which is why the tree of life is across time and space, right? Across all these different cultures, because everybody's tapped into it. Everybody's seen this tree, this energetic tree, and then they're trying to understand it, or they're trying to pass this on to others, but we're all filtering it through our own perceptions and through our own moment of existence, you know, the factors around us. So this mad message, right? So then this came in with the concept of trees again being associated with knowledge, the tree of knowledge, right? Because what do we make books from? We make books from trees. So, and then if we set fire to a book, it turns to ashes, which returns to the earth, which nurtures the trees. So there's this whole life cycle thing coming through. So let me just get, and this was coming in with thoughts as well of like being able to remember the future. How do we remember the future? And the message I received was, to remember the future, we have to walk in the past. So it's this idea of like, instead of walking into the future and remembering the past, you turn around or flip the mirror, is how it was coming through, which I don't know, I'm seeing in this card. Flipping the mirror and walking back into the past allows you to have memories of the future. I'm getting mad concepts, right? I was literally out for a walk and I was like, I'm feeling like I'm getting profound messages. So Last Man on Earth by Wolf Alice. Reading a book is like diving into another person's consciousness. And then I was getting the book within the book within the book, right? It's like bookception. So someone reading a book, I don't know, I take that as you will. And then, so this idea of if I walk into the past, I remember the future, flipping the mirrors. I made this note on the song that was playing at the time, which was Someday I'm Coming Back by Lisa Stansfield. Someday I'm coming back and it won't be long until you call me and tell me to come home. So I don't know. And then this idea of like trees and knowledge obviously brought to me the tree of knowledge and the symbolism of the apple, which to say, actually, if you go and look at the Bible and the original text, I believe that no one said it was an apple. The apple actually came from Greek and Roman myth with the golden apples of the tree of the Hesperides, I can't pronounce things. So borrowing from the myths of other cultures is happening, or there's an amalgamation of different myths because we're all tapping into the same thing, right? What is happening? What is the truth here? So anyway, to say as well, which is going to come back later, I believe that I don't know if it's in the Kabbalah or in and kind of one of the Eastern religions, perhaps Buddhism or something, there's again, I've read a lot, so it all becomes one big mush in my brain, which is how I see everything anyway. I see everything as one thing, right? And then different perceptions of the one thing, different like everything is everything, everything's the same thing. So the idea of splitting it up into different religions is just a way of humans conceptualizing something that is the mind of God, right? And therefore not to be conceived by a human having a human experience. It's beyond human conception to understand the mind of God. So we understand it in this fragmented way where we see it in pieces. Eating the fruit of the tree of knowledge. So here we get really deep, right? So would Eve eat the apple again if she knew everything? All right, that is a big profound question. If Eve knew everything that would happen, if Eve could see the future, if Eve had already lived this existence and she was put back in that moment, would she still eat the apple? I want to say she would, because I want to say there's purpose to everything. And it takes bravery to do that, right? So then this came through with the messages. There are those that embrace knowledge and those that fear it. So think about it as well as, people call, if you talk about the fallen angel, right, this is Lucifer. Lucifer literally means the light bringer. This is tapping into a Greek and Roman myth of Prometheus, who is this god who, he's the creator. Prometheus creates humans in Greek myth, and he wants to keep them warm and safe, so he gives them the gift of fire, right? So through being given this gift of fire, which, is whichever one of us, whichever caveman invented fire, right? Whoever thought, oh, if I hit these two things together over some wood, I create sparks. Oh, fire, light. Oh, look what I have created. Whoever created fire, right? Whoever had this divine spark, this divine idea of creating fire, this is what enabled us to make progress as the human race. This is why we're capable now of sending things up into space and exploring that realm. So this, which I think is a God-given gift, right? It's all, to me, it's all part of the divine plan. So so the light bringer, literally, he brought fire to earth, which has kept humans warm and safe and allowed us to cook food so we don't die of dysentery and all these kind of wonderful things. So the idea, right, this is where I'm telling is there's this whole flipping the mirror or seeing something from a different perspective. What if this fallen angel that we call Lucifer, this Lucifer or Prometheus, this light bringer who came to earth, perhaps they were just trying to give us knowledge, right? The tree of knowledge. Eve ate the apple and therefore gained knowledge, and therefore God, this vengeful, angry God, kicked his children out of the Garden of Eden because he was mad that they didn't follow the rules, right? So Zeus chained Prometheus to a rock and had an eagle pick out his liver every day and had it grow back. This is a cruel energy. So I've been getting some messages about, so if I don't know who's watched The Sandman, but the Sandman TV show kind of plays on this a little bit with their Lucifer character, and Lucifer has been kicked out of heaven. All Lucifer actually wants, their genuine wish, is to get back into heaven and to feel that love, right? But they've been exiled. They're out in the cold, which has made them cruel. Now, I had a very, very similar message come through so to talk about my guides and how I connect to, right, so if you look at this is kind of how it works when I'm in meditation. I connect to the higher and I connect to the lower. I have guides that, like I say, Archangel Michael was I say Archangel Michael, I don't know if it's the Archangel Michael, but it's how they presented, right, as this bringer of light and truth and integrity. But it's also, there's a dark side to it, right? He's the bloody hand of God. He's the one who he leads armies and things like this. That sword isn't just to tell the truth, that sword is to kill dragons. So I have these higher guides. So I have Michael, I have Starman, and I would say Charlotte as well, these guides that come into me with messages. And I have these lower guides who, one doesn't have a name, which is a bit suspicious, right? But I call it the dragon, and Catherine. So I'm connecting to higher and lower energies, but none are bad, right? So I really want to kind of throw this concept of good and evil out of the window. Now, again, actually bring it back in through the window again and go back to eating that apple. Now, if you look at the scripture, if you look at the language of different cultures, a lot of them interpret this moment of eating the apple as instead of good and evil being two separate things, they become amalgamated. This is why I think humans, as the middleman, right? Humans carry both of these energies within them. We have a devil and an angel in our shoulder. This is why doing shadow work is so important, because we understand that beast within, and we understand our lower natures. And instead of this being something that controls us like a puppet on a string, we pull on those strings and are able to control. We flip it, right? We flip this energetic connection, and instead of being something that controls us, perhaps through our impulses and our instincts and kind of lower behaviors, it becomes something that we've learned from, so that we can be empowered by this in a positive way. We pull the shadows up to the light, just as we pull the light down into the shadows. So it's a two-way. You see, it's like a two-way. It's like a strand of DNA. It's up and down. Pulling the shadows into light, light into the shadows. So and then connecting to these higher energies that feel so divine and so good. So my guides, the kind of dragon energy, it feels I'm really shy about sharing this, by the way, because again, I worry about how I'm going to be perceived. The dragon energy to me feels very protective. Sometimes, yeah, it's kind of like a big dog. I was saying to someone, when I was a little girl, my mum would go to kiss me, like genuine affection, like the a loving mother, and she'd go to hug me or kiss me. And my uncle had this dog, this black and white sheepdog, and she would, because this dog loved me, I was little, I was her baby, the dog would protect me. So she didn't like anyone getting too close to me. She was like, what are you doing? So if anyone tried to hug me, this dog would growl at them. So it's a similar energy where it's like this dragon is it comes through as protection, very, very protective over me. The Jaguar is more Catherine energy. She's kind of, if we're talking about root chakra, what's the next word? Root chakra, sacral chakra. Catherine's a bit stabby, wild, tempestuous, very empowered. She's a vibe. But the idea of this jaguar or panther that moves through the shadows, moves through the undergrowth, understands the darkness of human nature, right? She's been there. She understands that. She understands that darkness. She's been, if you think about somebody who perhaps had a difficult background, who grew up with around questionable people making questionable moral decisions, it's like you instinctively understand that. So you could be a good person who grew up in a dark environment, and if you go into a situation where things aren't quite right, because you've experienced it, because you carry that darkness with you, you can see what people are up to, you can see the warning signs, you can see the red flags, which again, if we bring in this idea of protection and how our shadow self and our darker self can protect us, is by understanding darkness, we are protected against it. It's only when we are naive and we haven't experienced that, and we haven't, when we've denied that part of ourselves, or we have never been touched by that darkness, then we're prey, we're vulnerable to that darkness. When we are like the darkness, we understand that darkness, we are protected against it. So just a concept to kind of think about there. Again, look at Carl Jung and shadow work if you don't understand what I'm saying. Again, if you're coming from this from a particularly religious point of view, this may be very shocking to you. And again, I'm just delivering the messages as they come into me about this kind of like, not, yes, to an extent inversion, which could sound very, very scary, right? I understand that. But again, there is good and bad in the world. We can't deny this. We can't ignore it. It's better to shine a light, right? Shine a light onto the darkness and use it to empower us in a positive way, to make positive changes where we understand where that darkness is coming from. Then turn the light away from that darkness and allow it to fester and go unchecked. So hopefully that makes a little bit more sense. So I recently did an ISO tank, which is a sensory deprivation tank. And leading up to this, I had a huge amount of fear. We're in Scorpio season. There's a lot of stuff going on in the news to be scared of. I'm really picking up on this collective consciousness fear. So I was sat in fear, and I was really in my own head as well. And I was going into this sensory deprivation experience with the wrong mindset, and I was almost like, I don't want to be alone with my own brain right now, because I'm scaring myself with the messages that I'm getting, because sometimes I channel things that are really dark and scary, and so I was scared going into that experience. And I remember being in that tank, and I was trying to channel, so I was trying to do what I do, because I was like, I don't want to miss the opportunity to get some really deep messages, but I felt completely disconnected. It was so strange. I felt like my guides were not there. The only guide that was there was the dragon energy, and it came through huge. It came through as massive, and it came through as not liking it. It didn't like it because I didn't feel safe, I want to say. So this, and you can say this is my animus as well if you want to talk about, again, like Carl Jung, the anima, the animus. I do think to an extent the dragon is my animus, right, protecting me. My own psyche, my own subconscious. So the dragon in that tank alone in the darkness, scared, the dragon came through as completely encompassing me in that darkness, like completely protecting me fiercely, like a fierce dog protecting a child. And so And it had this kind of like scrambling to get out quality. It really didn't like being in there. And it took me to some dark places. And I feel like I tapped into that energy. So what was coming through with this was this storyline of the devil, right? Or Lucifer, this fallen angel, this dragon, being in love with Eve, right? Which is why they wanted her to take the apple and not sit in the unknown, right? It's like the dragon wanted Eve to take the apple because the dragon wanted Eve to know what she was in. He wanted her to understand what was happening to her, you know, rather than her being this naive and therefore vulnerable kind of deer like prey. He wanted her to be empowered through knowledge, right? Which again, if we go through history, people, you know, the patriarchy didn't like an empowered woman with knowledge. This is why women didn't go to university or vote, right? It's like, oh, you can't trust women with knowledge. They'll be naked in no time. Stupid men, right? Not every man. Historical stupid men. Not all historical men, just the stupid ones. Stupid historical men. So, you know, some great men. You know, some men that I really like, you know. So this idea of like the light bringer. So again, you can refer to kind of, and I think there's even myths, if you look further into it, myths from Eastern religions and things that have parallels. So this idea of Prometheus creating the people, right, and loving them. And again, it doesn't have to be in love in a romantic sense, but creating people and loving them and wanting to keep them warm and safe, so giving them fire. Very similar myth, like it's coming through that way. Like the devil loved Eve and wanted to keep her safe and protect her, so he gave her the knowledge of the darkness, right, so that she could look out for it. I know, right? Mad story. Again, it is just a story. Maybe this is going to be something that we see play out in media. Maybe this is a film that's going to come out. I do channel films a lot, but again, I think films are just a projection of the psychic subconscious that we all can tap into. So it's like whatever is going on internally happens externally. There's, you know, external I don't know, there's art imitates life, right? So I think art often taps into the subconscious of the things that we're kind of thinking about but perhaps scared to say, and role plays it on screen so that we can explore and digest these ideas. So there was this angry dragon that I was stuck in this tank with, that wasn't doing me any harm, right? It was protective. Was coming through this message of, if I'm going to be denied love, if I can't have Eve, you know, Eve not as an actual single human being, but Eve as a motif, a anthropomorphication of the concept of divine love. So the dragon was like, if I can't have love, I'll have power, which is a Halsey song. I want money, power, glory, right? Lana Del Rey. It's like, do you know what? If I can't have this, then nothing else matters. If God is going to deny me this, then nothing else matters. I'm going to, you know, what's the point of anything? I'm just going to make the best of a bad situation. I'm going to go after money and luxury and power and blah. So it's like the devil became the devil because it was denied the love, which you can talk about, you know, you can see that motif playing out perhaps with teenagers who grow up in unhealthy environments. You know, they can become very, very destructive because they've been denied unconditional love of the parent, right? So if you've never been shown love, or if you've been denied love, you know, you can become quite angry and destructive, and you can go after the wrong things like money, power and glory. So really interesting message that came through with that. But I, at the same time, considering myself to be a light worker, right? Considering myself to be, it's coming through the word fulcrum, this middle energy, fulcrum between the light and the dark. Because nothing rules me as well, energetically nothing rules me, right? I can expand my consciousness to the edge of the universe, so I'm not inferior to any other energy. So I took this dragon, grabbed it energetically. You know, if it can grab me energetically, I can grab it back. Took this dragon, this big, powerful, angry, dominant energy, whooshed it up, took the energy all the way up into the highest point that I can take it to, which is the center of the sun, which to me is where the creator energy comes from, where God energy comes from, where, you know, unconditional love originates. I took it, dragged this dragon up with me right into the center of the sun, held it there, and had this cleansing moment of, if you watched David Tennant, his, when he, what's it called, when Doctor Who regenerates, right, when the old Doctor Who goes and the new Doctor Who appears, it's like it's done in this kind of explosion of light. So I regenerated the dragon. I want to say the dragon is now a lovely, lovely, lovely crystal dragon working for the light. You know, I flipped the script. So again, it's all shadow work, it's all visuals, exploration of dreams, subconscious and things like this. So it's just what I've been doing energetically. The crazy stuff that I get up to when I'm left on my own for too long, in solitude, right? In solitude, doing energy work in solitude, I'm like, do you know what, let's drag the darkness into the light. This explosion of light. So I've been getting the, right, the strangest thing is, and I feel so uncomfortable sharing this, the strangest thing is though, when I originally met the dragon, when I originally in meditation was taken down into, it was like the caves underneath a volcano and presented with this dragon energy, which I want to say I've met this energy before, but it came through as a person, like a plutonic, like if you think about if you went and met the god Pluto, right? Like, yeah. So same energy there. I recognize the energy, but it was a dragon in this thing, because maybe again, if you live parallel lives, who's to say we're not mermaids in one life? Or, you know, if evolution took a different direction, I know evolution is controversial too, take it or leave it, you know, maybe we evolved into mermaids at one point, maybe we evolved into, you know, Atlanteans, maybe we evolved into lizard people at one point, or dragons. You know, there's dragon myths, again, talking about the tree of life crossing multiple, I'm just sniffling, sorry. The tree of life being across different cultures throughout humanity. So are dragons, right? We've got Welsh dragons, we've got Chinese dragons, there's a lot of dragons around. So, yeah, I don't know. It felt like, yeah, when I was taken down to, when I was guided to this dragon, which was so sad and lonely, when I first met it, really like a dog that had been kicked and abandoned. The energy that took me to meet this dragon was Archangel Michael. And so then I had this question of, if this dragon is representative of the devil, Lucifer, whatever you want to call it, that dark energy that has many faces, why would Michael take me to meet it? And so I took it as, because he wants you to do shadow work, right? Archangel Michael, this warrior of the heavens, wants you to, again, very, very protective, wants you to embrace your shadow side and work with it, and, you know, not fear it, but get to know it, and really own it, because you've got to know it. So again, if you don't know what I'm talking about, go and look up Carl Jung's shadow work. So that made sense to me at the time, but recently I've been getting this feeling, again, everything, I'm just putting names on energy, so it doesn't have to be the Archangel Michael, but, you know, Archangel Michael was said to have slain the devil, right, at one point. So there's these questions, but I'm getting through in a number of different songs. Oh, and let me just look up a song, hold on. Okay, so I know this song as Luke Sital sing, but it may be a cover. It's called Me and God, right? So imagine this is Archangel Michael or Lucifer, right? So it's like this war that's been going on. And again, I feel like the fulcrum is in some way acting as like the devil's advocate, right? It's acting as because the devil was once an angel, so it can be an angel again. It's got this whole rollback time thing. It's like, finding common ground, being the negotiator, being the middleman is the way it's coming through. It's like this doesn't have to end in war and oblivion and apocalypse. This could end in everybody opening up their hearts and embracing each other and, you know, resolving the conflict. This is how conflict ends, right? This is how wars stop is through the negotiator. So it's kind of got the energy as well. If you know, there's a myth that I love from, the conception of Rome, which is the myth of the Sabines. Now, it's got a very dark beginning, but ultimately, the Sabine women run out onto the battlefield because their husbands are the Roman men and their fathers are the Sabine men. And the Sabines and the Romans are having this war, but you can look into the reasons for that, it's very dark. But the Sabine women take their children on as this divine feminine energy. They run into the middle of the battlefield and they say, no laeti pugnere, do not fight. We are family, we are the same flesh and blood, why are we fighting? And they act as peacekeepers, which I think is a beautiful, beautiful moment in a very dark myth. Again, myth isn't myth, the old word of mythos in Greek mythology is storytelling. It's not true or untrue, it just means a story, a narrative. So Me and God by Luke Sitar Singh is so from the point of view of either Archangel Michael having almost as if God was having a King Lear moment where, he'd become cruel, he'd become tyrannical, he'd become non-negotiable, and then his left-hand man is now questioning whether God is still good, right? And it's almost like Michael and the devil have become aligned in that the devil is just this injured soul who, I know he got kicked out of heaven for a reason, right? But again, this is the narrative, this is the story. Again, it could just be something that's going to come on. It could be a film that comes out or a book that comes out, right? That I'm not aware of yet, but that I'm channeling. It would make a really good story, a little bit like Good Omens, right? I love Good Omens, or The Sandman, right? This rethinking, this reconceptualizing, this turning everything on its head. So, and let's not say it, and it's like, look, what is good? What is good? Love is good, right? Cruelty is bad, and God can be very cruel. So I don't know, like, I think there's a choice of what energy you align with, and not blindly following somebody who has, yes, at one point perhaps was incredibly good and incredibly loving, but perhaps has maybe become a bit tyrannical. I don't know, there's this questioning going on. Again, it could just be a story. I'm not trying to rewrite the Bible or anything like that here. So me and God have been talking again, but it's too soon to call us friends, right? It's as if the devil and God are having negotiations. Me and God have been talking again, but it's too soon to call us friends. He still won't carry the weight of the world and just keeps listing off for all my sins. It's kind of like a bad father, like a tyrannical father who's unforgiving. Me and God have been laughing again. It's always funny reading passages, but he's still quiet at least half of the time, and I'm left with unread messages. So many voices shouting, so much noise, and I'm not listening anymore. Me and God have been singing again. I play piano and try to follow him, but it's always songs about glory and pain. I prefer the instrumental hymns. So many voices shouting, so much noise, I'm not listening anymore. Be better, live smarter. Go further in less time, change faster, hurt harder. Don't let a single day go by. And then there's a breakdown in relations. Me and God have been fighting again, but I'm too tired to make amends because I count the dead while he prays by his bed for forgiveness and for the rain to end. So it's this inaction in the face of bad things. It's like when it's that moment when humans lose their faith, right? When humans lose faith in God because they see all the pain and the bad things that are happening in the world, and they think, how can this happen under his eye, right? How can this happen in God's name? How can we go to war and murder children in God's name? How can we set off bombs in God's name? So there's this, am I on the right side moment? And again, it doesn't have to be God. It could be, I don't know, some government that you're following or something like that. If we bring this down to earth, some government that says that they're acting in God's name while making horrible decisions that cause a lot of pain to humanity. You can see this happening. So which I want to say is a corruption of the unconditional love that I feel God is. So God, there's just a lot. So this idea of the devil just wanting to tap into that love, not wanting to be out in the cold anymore. It came through a cheesy song, But again, if you think of this, again, either a consciousness, a fragment of God that's left leading many, many human lives. It's like, or somebody who remembers their past lives or something like this. So it's coming through the cheesy song, it's You're My Number One by Enrique Iglesias, but just listen to the words. I've kissed the moon 1,000,000 times. I've danced with angels in the sky. I've seen snowfall in the summertime, felt the healing powers from above. I've seen the world from the highest mountain, tasted love from the purest fountain. So it's like somebody who's lived so many different lives on earth, falling in love, having children, going on adventures, like they've done everything. I've seen the lips that spark desire. I've felt the butterflies 100 times. I've even seen miracles. I've seen the pain disappear, but I still haven't seen anything that amazes me quite like you do. And this was almost as though talking to this Eve character who kept on eating the apple, right? Because there's a bravery in knowing, there's a bravery in choosing knowledge over oblivion, right? Over naivety. So, oh God, it's really powerful messages. I don't know, and I feel like I'm going to be judged by putting this reading up, but I found it really profound. So, would Eve eat the apple again if she knew everything? So as I had these concepts at this moment of feeling like the devil was in love with Eve and saying, eat the apple, I know the truth of everything. As if in confirmation, I got the song Iris from the Goo Goo Dolls, which is literally the story of an angel who falls in love with a mortal woman and comes to Earth to have a human experience. So that blew my mind. And then I was getting these messages. So there are those who embrace knowledge and those that fear it. What if those who embrace have been repressed or rejected by those who fear, right? The vilification of Eve, the vilification of the devil, of Lucifer, of Prometheus. And then I got The Beast Below. Now, The Beast Below is a specific episode of Doctor Who that comes up all the time in my readings. It's this beautiful story of this star whale. And humanity has destroyed Earth. So England, basically, what's left of humanity, because it's a British TV show, so it turns out, it's the UK, but it's that humanity has survived. It was a rock floating in space, and it survived by this alien, it's basically floating on the back of this star whale, this massive beast. But the episode starts with everybody fearing, everybody's being trapped in fear. This society is a society of fear that's controlled, and the fear is that you're going to be fed to the beast below. And society's doing this awful thing where they're feeding children to the beast. This is how it seems. And so, but nobody knows this. And people sometimes question what's happening. They question the rules, they question the infrastructure, and they go to this room where they're given this choice. And they're put in front of this computer, almost like in The Fifth Element, right? The Fifth Element where Lilo, like Lilo and Stitch, Lilu is being given all this information of what humanity is, and she's seen all the war and the destruction, but then she's reminded that love exists and love is powerful, and she is a representative of love on earth. So if you want to compare that to this kind of Eve character of, are you gonna eat the apple? Are you gonna receive the knowledge of the crimes of humanity, how awful things can be, but so that you can make a change, so that you can know this and do something about it? Or are you going to live in peaceful oblivion and naivety, right? And just turn a blind eye to this? No, you have to shine the light on the darkness, right? In order to bring it into the light. So in The Beast Below, you fight your way to this room where you're sat in front of this screen, and if you choose to know what is truly happening, you then have this option of, are you going to remember, or are you going to forget? And everyone who has ever made their way into this room always chooses to forget the truth. So the truth is that in order for humanity to survive, the humans believe that they've basically trapped this star whale. They've tethered it to the floating rock that's what's left of humanity, because they're searching for a new home. So they've tethered this star whale, and they're torturing it. They're firing a laser directly into its brain in order to keep it tame, to keep it controlled, because they believe that if they break the bonds and set this star whale free, then humanity will spiral out into oblivion. It'll be the end of the human race. So it's this horrible, horrible decision of, do we continue to torture this beautiful creature, this beautiful alien creature who is the last of its kind, in order to hopefully get humanity to a new home? Or do we set it free and doom humanity, basically? This is the question, and this is why it's too much for everybody to... People can't continue with this knowledge, so they choose to forget. If they choose to remember, they can, you know... It's just too much to bear. So even the Queen herself in this TV show, she keeps choosing to forget. She can't bear to remember. And it's like she's known and forgotten so many times. And so what happens is Doctor Who, with a huge amount of empathy for this whale, because it's like him, right? It's the last of his kind. He's so angry because he's given this choice to... Well, he thinks there's no choice, right? It's a horrible catch-22 situation. So he thinks the best thing to do in that situation is to fire the laser into the star whale's brain so that it becomes brain dead. And so, yes, it's still alive and still controlled and still carrying these creatures, you know, the human race, to safety and survival, but it's not feeling the pain, right? It's not being tortured. So he thinks that this is the best thing to do in the situation, but he's absolutely tortured by doing this, because the whale's the last of its kind, like him, and he can put himself in that position where it's like, well, what if this was me? This is so cruel, you know? But his companion, who's a human, right, who has this instinct, runs over and she sets the whale free, because she knows the whale is like Doctor Who, and she says to the whale, stays, the whale no longer being tortured, no longer being shackled to Earth. The whale continues to carry the human race through space. And people don't understand this, like, why would it continue to do that? And she says to Doctor Who, if you were very old and very kind and the very last of your kind... It always gets me, this program. I don't know why it sits with me so much. She says, because if you were that old and that kind and the very last of your kind, you couldn't just stand by and watch children cry. So, God, I'm such a wet blanket. But that episode has always sat with me, and it's because she knows that he, you know, if he can't leave it alone. If he sees children crying, he can't leave it alone. He has to investigate it. And it's the same thing with the whale. It's like the whale just has all this empathy for the human children. So even though it's been tortured, it still stays. So I don't know. Yeah, so the idea of this impossible choice, that not many people can choose to remember. Not many people can hold that level of cruelty in their psyche without it hurting them. So you can look at the Matrix as well, and this concept of the red, blue, or the blue pill. Some people are the sort of person to say, well, what if I take both? What happens then, right? There's those people who are like, okay, you're telling me I can take the red, blue, the blue pill. What if there's a third option? And not Amy Pond. Yeah, it was Amy Pond. Like Amy Pond saying, well, what if there's a third option? What if we let it free and see what it does? Let it make the decision for itself. There's always a third option. Beyond the two options that were presented, there's always a different way of looking at things. So some men just can't hold their arsenic. Right, so Iris, the Goo Goo Dolls. I give up forever to touch you, because I know that you feel me somehow. You're the closest to heaven that I've ever been, and I don't want to go home right now, because all I taste is this moment, the moment of truth in your light, and sooner or later it's over. I breathe just to know I'm alive. So again, it's this idea of like something that's divine having a human experience. You know, divinity having human experience through almost like an avatar, right? So Yeah, so before I move on to the next thing, if I can't have love, I'll have money, power, and glory. Love and so this dragon, right? I was thinking to myself like of how, you know, it was like, do you know what? If I'm going to be denied the one thing that I want, I'm just, what's the point? I'm just going to go. Do you know what? I'm just going to be a monster. If you say I'm a monster, I'm going to be a monster. I'm going to go after power, you know, power and glory, and you know, this vying for power, because it's been denied love. And I was thinking to myself about the concept of love as an Achilles heel, right? Love as if you had this dictator character, this dragon character, you know, who's like vying for power at any cost. You know, to love is an Achilles heel. It almost holds you back. But it's also, the flip side of that is it's also a strength, because it gives you something worth fighting for. You know, it gives you something to live for. It gives you something to to spark that flame inside you, to light that fire. So the flip side of love, right? And as I was thinking this, Hotel Saya came on, which is from the film The Great Gatsby by Baz Luhrmann, the person who also created Romeo and Juliet, right? Didn't create Romeo and Juliet, but the film version, that iconic film version of Romeo and Juliet. And The Great Gatsby is this beautiful love story which is exactly, this is what was blowing my mind. I was thinking all this stuff in my own brain, and the songs were verifying what I was thinking. So it's like that story of The Great Gatsby. He's in love with this girl, but he has no influence, he has no power, so he goes away and comes back with this vast fortune. And he's done the exact same thing. It's like, I can't have the thing that I love, so I'm going to go out and chase money, power, and glory. Like, and yeah, it's exactly what I was picking up on. So that blew my mind. So it's Hotel Saya by Craig Armstrong and Lana Del Rey. And I was also thinking about, you know, like the passing of time and age, and you know, if someone returned and found this person older, would they still love them? And the song is literally, will you still love me if I'm no longer young and beautiful? Will you still love me when I've got nothing but my aching soul? I know that you will. So it's just beautiful. It's so romantic. And then I got to love and live in defiance because you're right and they're wrong. So if you think about the story of Romeo and Juliet, right, and the poison on the lips, so poison was coming through as a reference. The poison on the lips, Romeo and Juliet, right, dying because people couldn't accept their love. So a love that cannot be, a love that is shunned by society, right? A love that people don't understand because they put other things as higher importance. They put revenge or money above what I would call God, which is unconditional love. You know, the only thing worth fighting for, truly worth fighting for, is love. And it was this energy of like, if Romeo and Juliet have always ended in destruction, if every love story has always been ill-fated, what if this time they get it right? What if this time they don't take the poison, but they live in defiance, right? They live in defiance in this brilliant white light of this love, and in doing so they bring it down to humanity and set this new example. Sorry, I know it's big. So then I got Armageddon. I don't want to miss a thing by Armageddon, so that was fun. And this thing about going back to the tree and the apple and the knowledge took me, as I went and bought an apple. I went and literally bought apples because I was like, I want the knowledge. I want to understand what I'm being given here as this kind of seer, as this kind of fulcrum between the light and the dark. One of many, right? I think all humans are this. I'm going to eat an apple symbolically as somebody who is prepared to gain knowledge. You know, would Eve eat the apple again if she knew the cost? You know, this idea of the beast below. Would you have the knowledge again? Yes, because you can't do anything about it if you don't have the knowledge of it. You know, you have to, you know, it's like psychologists who do criminal psychology. You can't change these patterns if you don't understand the patterns. You have to know the patterns. So I got some men just can't hold their arsenic came in. Some men just can't hold their arsenic, which is a line from Chicago. Because apple seeds are a source of arsenic, cyanide, right? Or amygdalin, which is funny because it made me think of the amygdala. Then this came in with the message, I don't want to miss a thing, Armageddon. Curiosity killed the cat, right? So it's almost like a warning. Curiosity killed the cat. Don't eat the apple, Eve. But then it came through with, but at least the cat is better prepared in the next life. So it's like, yes, this may lead to this knowledge may lead to my destruction, but then if I can remember, if I can carry this forward into my next life, I'm even subconsciously, even if it's not consciously, even if I'm subconsciously aware of the warning signs with this panther energy, when this plays again, when we roll back time and we go again, I'll have the heads up. I'll have the advantage. So yes, give me the fucking knowledge. You know, so I'm not just a pawn on the playing field of life anymore. So it's like I'm not a pawn on the playing field. I'm now the person playing the game. I've now got that higher perspective. So I thought that was a really cool and interesting message. And then I started Googling, is it safe to eat apple seeds and cyanide? And I thought, I'm going to have to stop Googling this because I'm going to end up on some sort of watch list. But listen, I'm not doing that, right? I'm not doing that. I'm not recommending anyone do that. But interestingly, it's found not only in apple seeds, but also like apricots, peaches, things like this, which again, if you look at some of the, it's all coming full circle, guys. If you look at, we don't actually know, if you look at Genesis, we don't actually know that the fruit is never named, it's just called the fruit. And in some other myths, I think if you go and look at some of the other myths, it's seen as a peach or an apricot. So, I don't know. I just thought that was interesting. So yeah, that's kind of it. And then I got The Devil in Me by Halsey. I don't want to wake up the devil in me. Gotta wake up, gotta wake up, gotta wake up. So I don't know. I was a bit worried about the full moon in Scorpio, to be honest. I was like, I don't know what intuitive messages I'm going to get tonight, but I was getting it. I got a message about being in a supermarket and picking some nice food and somebody looking after me when I was ill. So I don't know. I actually had quite nice dreams. And then I pulled these cards. So I'm seeing owls a lot. The owl motif is coming through a lot in my readings. So I don't know what this is saying, but I'm going to run through the cards one by one. So again, willow tree, chalice, all these women. It's like all the face. It's like Clara, right? Being in all these women. Like the impossible woman. Sun, space, Neptune, if that makes any sense. So the first card that came out, funnily enough, was this strength card with the lion and the woman. And look at what is up in that corner. Can you see that? There's like peaches or apples. And it's funny that you can't quite tell what they are as well. I feel like it could be a peach, it could be an apple. So I don't know. That was interesting to me. Strength card, confidence, companionship. Two people who have each other's backs. One of them is a beast. The appreciation card, which this struck me because she's out in the garden. It's kind of coming through with this slightly witchy energy of almost like, if you know the propaganda around the wife of Augustus Caesar, it's said that she poisoned him, right, with the fruit of a tree. I don't know. It's kind of making me think of that book again. Going back to a book by Miss Marple. No, Agatha Christie. It's a Miss Marple story called Sparkling Cyanide. It's like somebody who understands plants, who understands toxicity. Maybe somebody who works in medicine, who. But it's knowledge, right? It's knowledge. Which plants heal and which plants harm. You know, the poison is also the cure. You know, understanding that. You know, everything has good and bad within it. It's just about how it's applied. So if you want to look at morphine, for example, this can be used as a very destructive drug, you know, that people get addicted to. It ruins their lives. Or it can be seen as, and this is how it's played out in my life, as a gift of pain relief for somebody who is dying painfully, you know, to slide them into the afterlife rather than for them to go kicking and screaming and in pain. So, you know, these concepts of, you know, things being good and bad, you know, it just depends on how it's applied and how it's used, and the importance of having somebody who whether this is kind of like a witch in the woods, you know, who James the First hated and kind of went out slaying, or if this is, you know, a medically trained professional doctor, somebody who understands the chemistry and the science of different plants, which, you know, plants become medicine. You know, the snake, if you want to look at the snake can both, it's the venom of the snake is both the the poison and the cure. You know, you milk a snake, you create the cure to the you know, you create the anti-venom. So now it's making me think of Anti-Hero by Taylor Swift. So the fear, fearing women with knowledge, fearing women, because it's like, well, if she knows, it's like me with my apple and my apple seeds, right? Because I pulled out, actually, I ate my apple and I was walking through some woodland, and because I was getting this message about the cyanide, I thought, do you know what? If I'm going to throw the apple core to the squirrels, I'm going to have to pull out the seeds. So I was like picking out the seeds of the apple so that I didn't poison the squirrels. And then I'm walking around with like apple seeds in my pocket, like I'm super suspicious. But again, it's like, you know, the idea of misunderstandings and things as well is like, doing something good could be interpreted as doing something bad. So it's just coming through with the fear of women with knowledge, right? So Eve ate the apple. She knows what apple seeds can do now. Just because it's the same energy as the jaguar, right? It's knowledge of the darkness doesn't mean that you are dark. Knowledge of the darkness means you understand the darkness. So again, talking about criminal psychology, or people who, you know, people who are watching shows like the Dharma Show, right? It's like, just why do good people watch horrible things? Why do good people watch horror movies? It's because we're trying to understand the darkness so we can protect ourselves from it, so we can see the patterns and stop it from happening, right? Again, go and watch The Devil's Hour with Peter Capaldi. Brilliant TV show. Really, really has that vibe to it. So this came through the princess. I don't know. The princess is reading a book about poison. She must be trying to poison somebody. No, maybe she's just trying to watch out for the warning signs in case her father, the king, gets poisoned, and she can recognize that that's happened. Maybe she wants to make sure that there's nothing in her own food. You know, understanding something that's bad doesn't make you bad. Okay, so then it's coming through with the owl, which clarified the high priestess. So again, this ability of the seer, right? And I do think there's this misunderstanding of the woman with knowledge, especially the woman with divine knowledge, the woman with psychic abilities. She's a witch, she's something to be feared. No, that's a misunderstanding. Just to say that the owl shows up here as well on this card. So the owl, very high priestess energy, it is scorpionic. Somebody who can see into the psyche of others, somebody who can project themselves into other spaces through astral projection, something like this. So the high priestess, gorgeous card. Messenger of earth. So this is talking about the higher self, the grounded self, the part of you that walks through the woods and eats an apple, and then the higher consciousness, the whispering in your ear, the intuitive knowledge, as I say, that crow's calling. Two fire choices. Am I going to choose good or evil? What path am I going to choose? Also this idea of like being carried forward by something. But it's like you have to look up, you have to be careful because there is a drop here. This beautiful Queen of Fire, somebody who's bold, somebody who's passionate, a woman in total control of herself. If you know that Devon Cole song, there's a Devon Cole song called Witch, and she says, I'm a woman in total control of myself. So really cool song, again, turning the idea of witchcraft on its head, and the idea that women with knowledge, especially sacred knowledge, are vilified by some figures in history. Really gorgeous. She's empowered, she owns her sexuality, she is not chained to anyone. She knows what she wants and she goes for it. She's outspoken, she's vivacious, she's attractive, she's magnetic. Probably something to be feared, right? Patriarchy. Instead of applauded, we should be applauding that. Then we have the Age of Light. You've been training this for lifetimes, right? It's come through. It says a lifetime. You've been training for this for lifetimes. Curiosity killed the cat, but at least the cat is better prepared in the next life. The Queen of Fire normally has a cat. It's coming through this frog renewal, which I'm not quite sure what this is saying. Frog renewal. It normally shows me somebody who's being almost like divinely picked out, like divinely anointed or something. It's like, because this frog's going, who, me? I'm the prince. The prince has been coming out with the knight quite a lot as well. The two cards have been coming out together, the prince and the knight. Who, me? Like, it's me. I'm king. I'm going to be the next king. Me, little old Arthur, pulling the sword out of the stone. All those big knights have been trying to pull the sword out of the stone. and they haven't been able to do it. Why would I be able to? Oh, I've got the sword. That's kind of the energy that gives me. I don't know, maybe frogs are a bit specific. But guys, again, have you got your seatbelts buckled? Are you sitting comfortably? Head rest. Check your airbags. I am not making this up. And again, I shuffle these cards. Whenever I get these cards, I put them in separately. I have not set this up. I have no way predicted that this will. I have predicted that this would come out, but I didn't know it was going to come out right now. What came out here? Guys. What came out here? The apple. But not only the apple, the seed. I am not kidding. This is how it came out. The apple seed. And I was getting Johnny Appleseed as well a few weeks back. I can't remember where. Johnny Appleseed. So again, like, look at this, like pulling down the light, bringing up the light. This, right? So the top of the pyramid, the bit we can see. Now this has been coming through not only for me, it was also coming through for an MN tarot reading. It's coming through across the board. Like the stuff that I'm channeling that I was too scared to say, all the other readers are saying it. And it's like giving me license to be like, oh, I'm getting that too. It's lovely as well when you feel like you're going crazy to have the verification that, oh, hang on, everybody who's tapped into this is going crazy, but we're all going the same kind of crazy. We're all getting the same messages. Like this idea of the mirror flipping, this idea of like, in order to understand, in order to remember the future, we have to walk into the past, which I guess is like learning from the past, right? Being handed down knowledge in books and reading this and being like, that's how wars start, that's how wars end, this is how we avoid conflict. Let's stop this, let's stop the apocalypse happening before it happens. Let's maybe negotiate with the people who hold the chemical weapons or the bombs that can destroy the planet. Maybe we should chat. Maybe we should talk this through. Maybe we should bring love into the situation. I don't know. This seems to have worked historically. I mean, we could carry on fighting, but then we all die if we look at history. Maybe the women should get on the battlefield with the babies and say, stop fighting, you dicks. Or we're going on a sex strike. Let's bring Lysistrata into it. Throne. The Seer. Really powerful card. I actually want to read this one to you. If I can find the book. The Seer 45. And again, this card scares me. It gives me really dodgy vibes. But people are scared of what they don't understand. That's where fear comes from. Fear just comes from not understanding something. The Essence. The Seer represents the capacity to reach beyond the obvious details of life into the hidden realms where information is available to those with the discernment to perceive it. This symbol represents psychic perception, intuition, and the capacity to know something without prior exposure. A bit like me being shown the Death card and the Tower card the day that somebody was about to die unexpectedly, right? I was like, oh my God, it's me. But it's scary. It's like, again, we don't talk about Bruno. These people get scared of it. He told me my fish would die and the next day, dead. It's like he somehow spoke it into existence. Like, it's, I don't know. He told me I'd get fat and bald, and now I'm fat and bald. He says, eating a hamburger. Do you know what I mean? It's like, the Seer knows. The Seer sees things for what they are, but people don't like to hear it. The Seer knows the truth, always seeks the truth beyond all else. The Seer eats the apple, right? And sees reality as it truly is without judgment. The Seer can read between the lines and understand what is not being said. He or she or they represent the power of clarity and being able to recognize patterns. I've always been able to recognize patterns. So before I became like a full-blown intuitive, like, oh my God, the universe is talking to me, it used to come to me in funny ways, like in quite practical ways. So I used to work in fashion, and I had this weird habit of being able to see trends coming back around a year or two before they actually came back around. So I was always well ahead of the fashion trends, well ahead of the fashion curve, in a way where I looked weird, I looked quirky, because I was wearing things that were not yet publicly fashionable. I was always slightly ahead of the curve, and by the time something became fashionable to the general public, I was like, oh, that's so outdated. And I was on to the next thing. So it came, like, it sounds really, really snobby, but it was just, again, for me, it was like, I'm passionate about this thing. I'm starting to see hints that this is coming into fashion. I would like be so enthusiastic about it. So I used to pull trends together as well in work. I used to be a visual merchandiser, and I was always looking for the next thing, and so products start to come in, and I'd be like, oh, that's what I've been. That's the next thing. That's the next thing, and I'd start to pull product together and to be trying to make these capsule collections before they were even launched. So again, it was like I had that power all along, but it came through in different ways depending on what I was focusing on. So I don't know, it's funny looking back and remembering how I used to see patterns. And I do it as well with patterns. I got really into politics for a while, and I could see the patterns in politics, and I was like, this is going to happen, this is going to happen, this person's going to win the election, you know, this person's doing this because of this, you know, and all my predictions in politics would come true, like maybe like 3 to 5 years after I predicted it. But I could see the pattern, I could see it coming back around. And this was because I was studying classics and humanities and going over a lot of, you know, how the Athenians used to run politics, and, you know, how wars started and things like this. I could see it. You can predict these things. Not because like the spirits are telling me, but because I understand history. You know, I understand the trends of the past. I understand the politics of the past. Therefore, I can see the patterns playing out again. Everything happens in cycles, slight variations. You know, it's always like a new spin on an old thing, but you can see it. The invitation. The seer invites you to trust your intuition and follow it. Your intuition that comes from the jaguar, right? The cat, the curious cat inside you, that because it made mistakes, it remembers, it knows it. The cat inside you, your intuition knows the darkness. It understands the darkest parts of you, so therefore it understands the darkest parts of others, which is a strength, right? Not because you are bad, but because it's like an early warning system to help you intuitively read situations. It's kind of like, I grew up in a pub, right? I grew up in a pub. People would drink too much. They start to argue. You know, it'd all start like all fun and games. Everybody was having fun, but you could see, you start to be able to recognize the tipping point where it was about to kick off. So now I'm very, very good at, if I'm out, if people are drinking, if people are having fun, I'm very good at getting out of the situation before you get to that tipping point where people start to argue. You know, it's early warning system because you've experienced it. I hope I'm explaining that correctly. The seer invites you to trust your intuition and follow it as it leads you forward. You may feel lost when it appears that your hunch is taking you in circles or even through a maze, and that absolutely happens to me. But the hidden realms don't follow the rules of a two-dimensional map, right? We're not talking a straightforward linear timeline here. We're talking wibbly wobbly, timey-wimey. Time is not linear. Time is a construct. Universal laws, right? God laws. Trust your gut and allow your perception of your circumstances to widen to include the nuances and subtle clues that you normally miss if you take things at face value. The seer has gifted you with their magic. You are exactly where you're supposed to be. Your vision is clear. So if you thought you were getting psychic visions, you might well be, right? Especially if it's coming from that instinctive cat-like part of yourself. So second chakra. The medicine. The seer has arrived now to challenge you to get out of denial and begin telling yourself the truth about your situation. Wishful thinking will not make what you desire happen when you're refusing to see things as they are. The truth may hurt, but it will set you free to claim the bounty that is waiting for you to notice it. There is a moment of true power. The seer offers you his medicine. When you are ready, surrender to the vision to spirit. Surrender your vision to spirit and ask to be shown the truth, no matter the price. Eat the apple, right? Eat the apple. Ask to be shown the truth no matter the price. Once you do, your eyes will open and you will receive a powerful gift. Isn't that mad? Okay, 4 of fire, an event, a celebration, a milestone. I'm going to see it as a milestone. The milestone that happens when you take the opportunity to gain some knowledge. Again, it doesn't have to be eating an apple. That is symbolic of accessing some kind of knowledge that is there's a lot of fear around it because it is, I want to say it is dark knowledge. Someone else had I feel like it was M.N. Tarot had a very similar message come through. I'd already pulled the cards and received all these messages, and it kind of got a bit too late for me to do the reading yesterday. I really wanted it to be a full moon reading. Got too late, it got too dark. It wouldn't have been a good quality video. But yeah, it's M.N. Tarot. She's on the same page. So then this Illumina, right? Just, it's like, I don't know, these two pillars with this energy being pulled down into the below, right? Because if you see it's sort of a bit like this, I don't know if you can imagine it like this, like right? It's like this is if you just see like the sort of triangular shape of the woman in a dress, and then like this It's like this is this, right? Because we're talking root chakra and stuff here now, like the, you know, what's beneath. So the ability to run energy up and down, it's like now the dragon's up here, right? Now the dragon's back in heaven. Now the dragon's redeemed. It's had this regeneration, like it's had this Doctor Who like regeneration where it's like now there's an alignment between in the light, right? Not in the darkness. In the light, there's an alignment between, it's like the devil and God, the devil and Archangel Michael, the devil and Starman. Isn't that curious? Isn't that really interesting, this idea of like flipping? I don't know, maybe I'm praying to a disco ball that's I don't know, it's a ridiculous video. So now we've got Throne and the Wizard. Throne and the Wizard with this very, like, look at the alignment of these cards with this, like, all these star beings, because now we've got this kind of Mother Mary type figure. Star mother, how can you mother yourself? So this encouragement of mothering yourself, nurturing yourself. Again, in this dream, it was kind of like, in this dream I was a little bit ill and somebody was looking after me, and kind of, it wasn't a woman, by the way, it was a man. It was somebody that I know, and I'd be really, really embarrassed to say that I'd had this dream. But there's somebody who is very nurturing by nature and very kind, and they were looking after me, and it was really sweet. But yeah, how can you nurture yourself? And then this, you've got this transcending card, right? This idea of like going higher. It really has this feeling of like what happened to me with the ISO tank when I was like, come on, dragon. Let's drag you up into those higher energies. Let's pull your energy up into the upper realms and give you this epiphany, this rebirth, this like the sun and space energy through love, right? Through this embrace. And then it's like you've got this whole thing about like getting, you look, the star and the panther, like pulling the panther up into the star energy. Like I don't know what this is, how it ends, the star and the panther, but you've got this kind of like all curling up energy. So I don't know if this is like getting snuggly, like I don't know, getting comfortable, like wrapping yourself up in a duvet or something like this, and maybe meditating. You know, maybe some of you, if some of you are a little bit poorly, I've been a little bit poorly, I've had a bit of a tummy bug. You know, wrapping yourself up in your duvet, giving yourself a bed day, giving yourself time to relax, and, you know, slow and steady. But you've got Caterpillar as well. Now, Caterpillar is a really funny card. It kind of has this curious stranger energy to it, a little bit Cheshire Cat in the Alice in Wonderland. But it gives me kind of like almost like a butterfly unfurling. So again, this idea of regenerating, coming into your final form, you know, transcending, right? Transcending, being the better version of yourself, pulling your darkness into the light, all that kind of shadow work type stuff. But it also gives me and I'm only saying this because I watched a video yesterday of this person where I saw this person wearing this top. So this sometimes does give me, if it's relevant, if it's not relevant, absolutely leave it. But this does sometimes give me drag queen energy, because if you look at a drag queen, they're very, very colourful, right? They've got, normally have like very bold makeup, bright colours, sparkles, sequins, disco ball energy, right? Very, very like dressed up and vibrant. So it kind of gives me that energy of somebody who's like really kind of like, they're wearing all the best makeup, they're wearing a bit of glitter eyeshadow, you know, they're kind of dolled up to the nines. But it's specifically, I think another kind of little indicator for me is there's a specific drag queen called Trixie Mattel, who I think is amazing. Like I love Trixie Mattel. But they were wearing a top with all these eyes on once. So it kind of reminds me of that. It reminds me of Trixie Mattel. So I'm throwing that in there just in case that's relevant to anybody. Again, gender is, we all carry feminine and masculine energy. It's within all of us. So you can present in different ways. You can present as a man who likes dressing in women's clothes. You know, it's you can present as a man who is a drag queen. Like there's diversity, and I'm going to say that's okay. I don't know why that's coming through, but it is. But again, maybe just getting dressed up. Maybe this is just talking about kind of like having a makeover and revealing yourself, something like that. But then we have this Two of Water, which I love because it's with the Star Mother, right? How can you mother yourself? And I want to say there is companionship here. There is it's like being true to who you are and being able to find the people that resonate on that frequency, right? Who share the same emotions, who share the same feelings. So there is this two coming together, the Two of Cups. It's like if you are there with your cup of unconditional love, or even an empty cup saying, I have not found this love, I have never been given this unconditional love, or I've been denied this love. Actually having that reciprocated and actually finding someone to, it's like, find me somebody to love, find me somebody to love, right? It's like finding them. Slow, taking it easy, taking it slow and steady. Perhaps you're both carrying baggage, perhaps you're both working through your shadow, that kind of thing. Slow and steady, take it easy. There is a change of fortune. So if you feel like you've been stuck in the mud, if you feel like you've been trapped in a cycle, this is a cycle change. Fortune's wheel, there's something new coming. Take it slow. It's good. It's showing as a companion. Take it slow. Maybe I'm just channeling Doctor Who. I don't know. When's the next episode of Doctor Who on? Moonlight. You're my starlight. I need you. Moonlight, come and dance with me. I don't know. I don't know why Moonlight's here. Take it as it resonates. Leave it if it doesn't. You've got an hourglass there. Someone hugging themselves. An owl in front of the moon. And it's clarified by the star and the panther. So the panther, I know it's a jaguar here, but I see it as a panther. Same, different, right? We're not splitting hairs here. Carried over here. Now, just to end this reading. So after last week, my experience in the ISO tank, where I had this protective angry dragon that was like not letting any of my other guys close. I could not connect to Starman. Like the dragon was like blocking out all the other energies, and almost like just like a massive dragon, a massive dog or something. It was encompassing me in this protective darkness. Like it's like it was keeping me hidden, right? It was like keeping me hidden, keeping me in the shadows in order to not be seen, to be kept safe. And I took it, right? Because anytime there's an energetic link, it works both ways. A bit like Harry Potter and Voldemort, right? Where Voldemort's reading Harry Potter's mind and he kind of he Uno reverses it, right? And he's like, I'm going to read your mind now, way. Or like Snape and Harry Potter. It's so I was like, okay, I'm going to pull on this cord. I'm going to pull on this thread, and I'm going to take you up. You're coming with me. You're coming with me. I'm like, if you won't let me go there, we're both going. Was how it kind of came through. And so ever since, I've had this union energy. It's coming through really beautifully. I'm getting all this stuff about black fur. So I had a black cat called Bess. And she was one of these, like, she looked smooth, she looked kind of smooth, she wasn't particularly fluffy, but her hair was really thick and dense and really soft. So especially now she didn't really like you to touch her tummy, but if you had the gift of being able to touch the fur of her tummy, it was so soft and thick and warm and gorgeous. So, and I've had this feeling in meditation this week of being like, if you imagine my cat but massive, and just snuggling like a kitten, right? Like a little baby kitten, snuggling into her mummy's warm tummy fur. It's like I've been like fully immersed in this like thick, warm, protective, comforting fur. It's been the most gorgeous feeling. And again, this is why it's not something to be feared. It's not something evil or wrong. It's the power of your shadow as this protective mother, perhaps. Maybe it is my mum. My mum was Scorpio, so I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah, so, but then I had the Starman came back, right? And again, I felt really disconnected to the higher energies. So this, it was like this feeling of being compressed, but not compressed like squashed, but embraced from both sides, from having this like black furry protective energy at my back, like being all snuggled into this comforting energy behind me, and then this Starman coming and embracing me from the front. It sounds a bit kinky, right? I have been watching My Policeman. Just a bit midway through My Policeman, so I don't know, maybe there's a bit of that in the air, but yeah, like Starman, like just being this, like the feeling that comes with Starman is like that unconditional love, like the chalice of it being like pure love and light. And like a teacher. It kind of comes through like teacher energy, but being like encompassed with this, between this very blackness and this kind of like expansive star energy. It just felt like the most gorgeous, cuddly embrace. And it's like me being the fulcrum, right? Me being the, thinking really highly of myself here, right? Me being the fulcrum that has brought these two back together, that has, like, through me, through my advocacy, mediumship, on the astral plane as this fulcrum between the light and the dark, has stopped. It's like I've stopped this. I don't know, the war of the angels or something. It's like I've brought them back together in agreement, in an embrace. It's like maybe, you know, they couldn't embrace, they couldn't hug, you know, the Starman and the dragon. They couldn't hug unless there was this medium energy. I don't know, now it's getting kinky, right? It didn't feel kinky, it felt just like a hug. It felt like being embraced by two people who love you and who love each other, right? It felt like being like in the middle of a warm embrace between two people who love each other. It was really, really cozy and beautiful, and I can't really say that enough. So that's what I've been getting intuitively. My own life, my 3D life, is proper boring. I've been out for a walk, I've been doing tarot readings, my house is messy, I can't be bothered cleaning it. I'm gonna level with you guys. I ate some apples yesterday and then some grapes. Like, my life, my 3D life is super boring, but my inner world through meditation has been on a ride, and it was really scary for a while as well. I was like, apocalypse, apocalypse, my lips, your lips, apocalypse, right? It just feels really good. So if you've been sat in that fear energy, it really feels like a war has been resolved through love, which is just incredible. It's really, really beautiful. On the underlying, shout out my cappies, we've got the stag spirit leadership, which is like it's kind of like what's it called, like a patronus, right? Again, with this protective energy. Maybe that's, you know, maybe your animus shows up as a stag. We've also got, which I found quite curious, on the underline of this deck, messenger of water, which came through in this last Storytime reading that I did and published, a psychic face, right? A psychic meeting with somebody, and a message of love, which was beautiful. This Eyes of the Eagle, rising above the fray, which was coming through when I was thinking about, you know, those who understand the darkness but walk in the light, right? Those who have been fully immersed in darkness to the point that they're infused with that darkness, and yet they still make the good choices. They still choose light over darkness, but that darkness protects them from the darkness of others, because you can recognize it, right? Rather than being an innocent little prey, you become equivalent to the predator. But it doesn't mean you have to be a predator. A bit like how, yeah, I could eat meat, right? I could. I've got canines, right? I could eat meat, but I choose to be vegetarian, right? Because I understand what happens to animals in the food production industry, and it doesn't sit right with me that I should murder another animal in order to be able to live, when there's so many really good quality vegetarian and vegan options on the market. It's like, I don't need to kill animals to live, so I'm going to choose to make the higher choice. So do you see what I mean? Like, just because I've got canines doesn't mean I have to go out and kind of eat things, like eat other animals and take a life. So yeah, I don't know, take it as you will. Shall we get a song to close out this reading? No, because I don't know what I've done with my phone. Hold on. Oh, so the song that I was listening to just before I started the reading was Mouthwash by Kate Nash, which was coming to me like a little bit like, will you still love me when I'm no longer young and beautiful? So will you love me when I'm nothing but my aching soul? So the idea of like the soul or consciousness being something that's separate to the body, right? And somebody loving you not for your surface value, not because you're pretty, because you wear nice makeup, because you dress yourself up, but somebody who can look beyond the surface appearance and love the soul, right? So and the idea of the soul being a vehicle for the body, but loving it like you'd love a car, right? Loving it like, excuse me, loving it like you'd love a I've got a little car next to me. So I was joking with a friend who's about owning cars, and we got a bit competitive, and I was like, I'm surprised you don't have a Ferrari. And they were like, oh, I have. And they had like a little toy Ferrari. And I was cleaning out my kid's toy box the next day, and at the bottom of the kid's toy box was a toy Ferrari. And I thought that was really funny. But I didn't say, because I thought I don't want to be like attention seeking. So yeah, so I don't know. The universe is making me laugh. Right, Mouthwash by Kate Nash. This is my face, covered in freckles with the occasional spot and some veins. This is my body. It's like, what car am I driving right now? I don't think I'm a Ferrari. Like, I don't think my body is a Ferrari. I think my body is a maybe like a reasonably well cared for, like, vintage Jag or something. I don't know what is my body. A little beetle. It's falling apart slightly, but it's reliable. Right, this is my face covered in freckles with the occasional spot and some veins. This is my body covered in skin, and not all of it you can see. And this is my mind. It goes over and over the same old lines. And this is my brain. Its torturous analytical thoughts make me go insane. Can relate. I've got a Gemini moon, and if you've got a Gemini moon, torturous analytical thoughts. Yep. And I use mouthwash. Sometimes I floss. I've got a family, and I drink cup. That's why I was so scared of being in the ISO tank. I was like, don't leave me alone with my Gemini moon. Don't leave me alone with my own brain. My torturous analytical thoughts. Right, this is my where are we? I use mouthwash. Sometimes I floss. I've got family, and I drink cups of tea. So again, it's like a divine being. The divine being having a human experience on earth. It's really weird. I've got nostalgic pavements. I've got familiar faces. I've got mixed up memories. So I don't know if you experience this. I've got memories of a life that I'm not living. It's really weird. I'm not going to go into it because it is quite private, but I've got memories of a life that I'm not. I've got memories of a different life. And it's really, really weird because it's like a parallel timeline. So it's like, what? But if you watch The Devil's Hour, it was really uncanny to me because there's little similarities that I could relate to, because she has these kind of psychic abilities, and they play out for her quite differently than how they play out for me. But there's little things like, memories of things that haven't happened. And I have that, and it's really weird. Right. I've got mixed up memories, and I've got favourite places, and I'm singing on Friday night. Oh, another thing somebody told me, when they were a kid, I don't think they'll mind me telling this story. When they were a kid, they went to this village that they'd never been to before, and they knew where things were. They knew like there was there's a post office up the road, there's a pub on the corner, and everybody was like, how do you know this? You've never been here. And they were like, I remember it. And they were like, how do you remember it? You've not. I think we have memories of past lives, really do, or parallel existences or something. There's something happening, guys. I hope everything's going to be all right. This is me. I've got 1,000 opinions, and I've got not the time to explain. And this is my body. No matter how you try to disable it, I'll still be here. Cat with 9 lives, right? No matter how you try to disable my body, I'll still be here, because you live through your consciousness, you live through your mind, you live through, like Clara, through 1,000 existences. Yes, I'll still be here. This is my mind. And although you try to infringe, you cannot confine. And this is my brain. And even though you try and hold me back, there's nothing you can gain. Because sometimes I use mouthwash, and I've got a family, blah, blah, blah. So cute. I like it. It's an empowered song. Oh, I was going to randomise you a song. I'm getting scatty. I need to go and get some food. So can we get a song to what? So for the people watching this reading who are still watching at this point, thank you so much for those watch hours. They really top up. This really helps out the channel. And I really hope you gain something from this, other than, yeah, this girl's crazy. I hope you took something else away from it that's going to help you in your own life. But, so my guides, so the energies that are speaking through me, what do you want to communicate? Okay, I got an advert, but it's Scars by Papa Roach. There you go, Scars by Papa Roach. So, right. So this is what they want you to know. I tear my heart open, I sew myself shut. My weakness is that I care too much. And my scars remind me that the past is real. I tear my heart open just to feel. Drunk and I'm feeling down and I just want to be alone. I'm peeved because you came around. Why don't you just go home? Because you channeled all your pain and I can't help you fix yourself. You're making me insane. All I can say is, and then the chorus repeats. I tried to help you once, against my own advice. I saw you going down, but you never realised that you're drowning in the water. So I offered you my hands. Compassion's in my nature. Tonight is our last stand. Because you're drowning in the water, and I tried to grab your hand. I left my heart open, but you didn't understand. But you didn't understand. Go fix yourself. I can't help you fix yourself, but at least I can say I tried. I'm sorry, but I've got to move on with my own life. And then it repeats. I tear my heart open just to feel. So take that as it resonates, leave it if it doesn't. My scars remind me the past is real. That's curious, isn't it, with the whole thing about memories. All right, I hope this reading was helpful to you. All the songs that came through for the reading that helped me channel will be down in the description box down below. I don't know why I need to tell you this story, but they reminded me of it as I was like waiting for the adverts to pass. So when I was in my little ISO tank floating around in the salty water, which is still, I feel, left salt in my ear, it's not the best. When I did try to channel and I was doing my breathing work, doing the energy work when I was like breathing and running energy up and down my body, I did have this moment where, because apparently people see things in there, people being in the darkness, people start to visualize things, people start to have visions, and the person that I was there with had some mad visions, which I won't go into because it's kind of personal, but I hardly received anything, again because this dragon was like, no, cutting you off from everybody and everything. So I was trying to push that away and go beyond that and access things anyway, because I wanted the opportunity to kind of reach, the opportunity to get some kind of profound visions out of it. So as I started to, and again, you're in pitch blackness, right? It's sensory deprivation. So I was breathing and I started to get this is the only vision that I had in there, other than like because I get internal visions, and I think in that you're meant to get external visions, a bit like if you take substances. So there was this weird visual thing that started to happen where I was in this blue light, like completely right inside the tank. There's like a button on the wall and you can press it and there's this blue light comes on like this, right? Like a similar colour blue light comes on so you can see what you're doing, so you can find the handle to get in and out and stuff. But normally you turn it off and you float in there with the light off. And I was genuinely confused because the light was so, and again, it was pitch black, but the light was so bright and real and not internal but external. It's like I could see this blue light that I actually thought, have I turned the light on accidentally? And I had this moment of like, I had to pull myself out of the meditation to check that the light was off, because the blue light was that real and intense to me. It was in my vision. So again, like you're floating around in this kind of like, it's like Epsom salts. And I did pull myself out of it because I was like, well, maybe it's something to do because I'm in an enclosed space and I'm doing this deep breathing work. Maybe it's something, maybe my brain is being starved of oxygen, right? Maybe I've used up all the oxygen in here. I started to panic. I was like, maybe this is like a sign that something weird is going on in my brain and I need to not do it. So I couldn't let myself go any deeper than that. But that blue light was so visually real. Like it really, really was. Maybe I need to do it with somebody else. I don't know. But yeah, that's the only thing I actually got in terms of visions. Like external visions, internal visions, like me and the dragon having a moment. But like, I don't know. It was I kind of, in a way, I'm kind of kicking myself because I wish I'd gone deeper, right? I wish I'd kept on going with it, because it made me think of like the Oracle of Delphi and things like that, the oracles of ancient Greece, where it said that they smelt the vapors, and it's kind of like they smelt the vapors and had this trip. So I kind of think, oh, I should have kept smelling the vapors. Like I should have gone deeper into that blue light. But at the same time, I was like, I don't want to starve my brain of oxygen, so maybe not. Maybe I won't do that deep breathing anymore. I don't know. I kind of want to do it again, but I don't know. I get scared. All right. I hope this reading was really, really helpful to you. It is a longer reading. It's 2 hours long. There's a lot of waffle. But again, I've been channeling so much. And it's one of those things, it's like if I don't get it out, it'll just keep coming. So here we are. Here's the random stuff I've been channeling in Scorpio season. Judge me. And yeah, hopefully I'm gonna get a bit of a I'm gonna be in a bit of a nicer place now because the energy's gone really cuddly and nice, and I hope it stays that way. And I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go and do some laundry. Do take care of yourselves, and I'm gonna take care of my vehicle. I'm gonna take care of my little vintage Jaguar, and I'm gonna go and feed myself some mushrooms. Only the normal kind, right? Only like the kind that you buy in the co-op, not magic ones. Take care of yourselves. I'll see you again soon. Bye, friends.